Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Join us today as we talk about Snapchat. Hello everyone and welcome back to Advanced Studio Classroom. My name is Brandon and today we are on day 3 of our Newsworthy Clips article. Back in the studio I have
Linda
and
Albert.
Welcome panelists. What have we been talking about the past 2 days? Linda, what did we talk about on day 1?
Well, we talked about a new medical revolutionary technique in gene editing.
Okay, all right, and we talked about how that's kind of controversial because we don't know which path it's going to go down, and there are some situations involved, ethical situations and moral implications, and so if you did not join us for day 1, we encourage you to go back and listen to the program and read that. And yesterday, though, we talked about something a bit different, still under the health umbrella. What did we talk about?
We talked about how there is, new breakthroughs for treatments for people with pancreatic cancer. And yeah, I really like how you, just advised our listeners to go check it out. You can find it on our website, Studio Classroom or Advanced.
Right.
And you can listen to past shows.
That's right. So we encourage you to do that if you did not listen to those programs already. And so those were medical related. Today we are switching gears a bit and we are talking about something in the technology industry. We are talking about Snapchat. Now, Albert, what is Snapchat?
Well, Snapchat is this app, or some people call it APP, and basically it's like a mixture of Instagram, but with videos. Nowadays, we have Facebook and Instagram copying Snapchat because they've been leading for a while in terms of how you share moments, save moments, and connect with your friends and family. It's been really popular with the younger generation. When it first started out, there was kind of a controversy with it about how people would use it to send less than clean messages.
Okay, so there is some controversy in a lot of things, right?
Yes.
But Snapchat, the key point, I guess, is, the video or whatever disappears after a certain amount of time, or at least that's one of the options that you can have. Does it automatically do that, or can you can save it, right?
Right. So it's been changing over time, but still it's the format still stands, which is it's very temporary, it's very fleeting. It deletes itself after a period of time or after someone views it. You can set that part. But basically the idea is like you do something silly and don't worry about it and share it with a friend. There are options where you can pay a little bit of money to have it saved. You can use other apps to save Snapchat stories, what they call stories or shares. So Snapchat itself doesn't like that. And also the person doing the recording or sharing, they have it, a copy of it on their phone.
Okay, great. Well, Linda, do you use Snapchat?
I do not.
Okay, do you use some other kinds of apps that are similar?
No, actually I don't. So the concept of Snapchat is rather unfamiliar to me.
All right, so you are learning along with some others that maybe aren't familiar with this, right? But it does say that Snapchat Maker files for IPO. What is IPO referring to? It's referring to initial public offering. But what does that mean, Albert?
Well, basically, it means now that it's open to the public and people can trade in its stock.
Okay. All right. And so I guess that's good news, right? Hopefully for the company. If they make it to this, that is a good sign for them. And so we're going to get into more of the details as we look at page 22. So if you have your magazines, go ahead and open to page 22, or you can also look on your digital device as we have our first reading for today.
Snapchat maker files for IPO. Snapchat app maker Snap Inc. filed papers to move forward with what's expected to be the biggest initial public offering ever for a Los Angeles company and one of the highest valued in U.S. history. Conceived 6 years ago by Stanford University fraternity brothers to help peers send photos that would vanish after viewing, Snapchat roared through high schools and colleges. When the app hit 40,000 users in months, its co-founders knew they held a treasure. Now, according to the filing, it boasts 158 million daily active users. And sources familiar with the matter say Snap's stock sale could generate up to $4 billion, with shares priced to value the company at upward of $25 billion.
Okay, so we just learned in the heading that Snapchat, they filed for this IPO, initial public offering, and then we start off the article with that. Snapchat app maker Snap Incorporated filed papers to move forward with what's expected to be the biggest initial public offering ever for a Los Angeles company. So this is a really big deal, Albert.
Yeah, it is. I mean, some people are probably Snapchat users. Most likely you guys are Snapchat users. And you're like, well, how is this relevant to me? Well, it is because, if the company does well, you can see that, they're going to have more funding to incorporate new features and tools for you as a user, and that this company will be around for a while. A lot of software companies have been coming and going, and sometimes it sucks that you invest so much time in something and it just disappears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's also one of the highest valued in U.S. history, and so we get a picture of what's going on with Snapchat, and they're moving forward, and they're growing as a company. When did this all start? When did Snapchat begin?
6 years ago, and it was started by some college kids, actually, at Stanford University, some fraternity brothers. And a fraternity is an organization, a brotherhood of students. They're all male, and a female version would be sorority. And they wanted to help peers send photos that would vanish after viewing. So that's how they came up with Snapchat.
All right, so it was conceived. That just means it started 6 years ago. And it reminds me of kind of how Facebook started, right? Because that was also on a university campus. Mm-hmm. And so it seems like these college students, they get their minds together, and they are producing some very interesting, things and very successful, some of them, right? And so that's kind of interesting that how that, is related to Facebook as well. Well, we see that we get that information that when you post something, when you send a photo, it will vanish after viewing. And so that's kind of, as I mentioned earlier, that's the key point or key difference with Snapchat, because there are so many platforms out there. Right. So what makes this one different is this feature where it vanishes.
Right, and I remember first hearing about it years ago, and it was such a weird idea. It's like, usually when you take a photo, you want to save it for posterity reasons or, otherwise. But here it was like, no, it's live and enjoy the moment, and then it's okay, don't worry, move on. So that's the approach, and I never really got on board with it because I'm like, I want to save all my moments and memories. Yeah. But apparently there are times where it's just like, hey, be silly, be wacky,
right.
Don't worry about it. It's not going to be on your Facebook page 6 years later, and you're like, what the heck was I
right.
thinking?
Well, maybe, Albert, it's because you're not in high school or college, because Snapchat roared through high schools and colleges.
Right. And if something roars, it's loud. And so this had a really big impact in high schools and colleges. It was very popular.
All right, and then it hit 40,000 users with just a few months, within months, it says. And its co-founders, they knew at that point that they held a treasure, that they, had created something that was popular, that was going to make it, and so they kind of
valuable.
They kind of hit the jackpot, so to speak, and so they felt pretty good, right?
Right, and they were, 40,000 users in months, but present day they have 158 million daily active users. That's amazing.
It is amazing. And so, as Albert just said, according to the filing, it boasts 158 million daily active users. So lots of people are on there using Snapchat. And we've seen that word boasts a lot. And if I boast about something, that could be really negative, right? I would be called boastful. Stop boasting about something, some award that you won. Stop talking about yourself. But when a company boasts about something, it's a good thing, right, in general?
Right. It's something that they're proud of, that they can take pride in, that they have 158 million daily active users.
Right. They want to put that information out there to show people that they are successful or how successful they are. And, this is according to sources that are familiar with this matter, and they talk about Snap's stock sale could generate up to $4 billion. That part there is according to the sources. And the shares, they're priced to value the company at upward of $25 billion. And so, sounds like, Albert, they're on the right path.
Sounds like it.
As far as business goes, right? They are making a lot of money. And just to think, Linda, this all started when they were back in college. Do you wish you would have started something back in college like this?
Yeah, that would have been nice,
Right. And so it is encouraging, though, that if you have this mindset, where you are good with technology or something else, and you're in college, and sometimes you think, what can I offer? What can I do? And you think, well, I'm, only in my 20s. I'm only 18 or 19. What can I do? You can still come up, of course, with great ideas. So don't think that you're too young to do something.
Right, and I just maybe expand on that a little bit and take it a little further. So I feel like if you have a great idea, if anything, you should pursue it. I remember reading the other week about this guy who wanted to make a really good Spanish version of the Bible. And he's in his mid-40s and, just a hit. It's a hit right now.
All right, and so there are many great ideas out there, and so you get other people together and put your minds together, and who knows what will happen. You can at least try some things as you're in school and so forth as you have those opportunities. Well, so far we've found out that Snapchat is doing quite well. They filed for this IPO. Let's find out more in our next reading.
Snapchat has become a force in technology, advertising, and entertainment. The company, which rebuffed a multi-billion-dollar acquisition offer from Facebook, has popularized vertically oriented videos, pioneered interactive smartphone ads, and become a hot way for media to reach teenagers and teenagers to reach each other. It is for the younger people what texting was for 10 years ago, said Wedbush Securities research analyst Michael Pachter. It's their way to communicate.
So Snapchat has become a force in technology. But not only that, also in advertising and entertainment. They're everywhere.
They are, it seems.
What does it mean to become a force?
They are powerful.
Yes, they are very powerful. And we see that based on their stocks and shares and so forth, and that they were able to file this IPO. And so we see kind of that they are very successful. Well, we learn here that the company which rebuffed a multi-billion-dollar acquisition offer from Facebook has popularized vertically oriented videos. Okay, and we have a lot more there, a lot of information here. So, first of all, that term rebuffed.
Right, so it means that you're going to refuse to accept a helpful suggestion or offer from someone, and so they rebuffed a proposal from Facebook. Like, it's unimaginable. I feel like if Facebook knocked on my door, I would say yes to whatever they're offering.
And it was a multi-billion-dollar offer.
Right.
Okay, that's right. And so they refused it. They said no to Facebook.
Whoa.
Okay, and that word acquisition?
Right. So if you have an acquisition, you acquiesce something or gain something. So Facebook wanted to buy them, and so that they could be part of Facebook.
Okay, all right. So they refused that offer, which I don't know. It's a multi-billion-dollar offer. Maybe that was tempting for them, but I guess they think they're going to make even more money.
As we can now see, upwards of 25 billion.
Okay, so what have they done, actually? We see here that they've popularized vertically oriented videos. What is that referring to?
We've actually talked about this about 2 years ago. I think we also talked, it was Snapchat, so traditionally filmmakers, when they film something, it's horizontally. So it's like landscape mode where side to side, a lot of, you can see a picture, right?
Yeah.
And vertical is basically how you imagine holding your phone vertically.
Right.
You swipe up and down and stuff like that. So it cuts off the left and right. And people like, especially filmmakers who are like, no, that's not the way you film things. It's really horrible. But it's natural in the sense of how you hold your phone, and they popularized that.
They've made it popular, in other words. And they've also pioneered interactive smartphone ads. And so if you pioneer something, you start it, right? And you get the ball rolling. And so they've pioneered these interactive smartphone ads, and of course they're interactive. That means you are doing something with the ad, right? You are involved with that in some way or the other. Usually the only interaction I have is clicking the X on the ad. But anyway, they have pioneered that. And we see that it talks about becoming a hot way for media to reach teenagers. And so, of course, we learned that kids in high school and college students, they like Snapchat. And teenagers, they reach out to each other using Snapchat. So I guess maybe that's why, we're not as familiar with it. We're not teenagers. We're not in college. But I think others are, adults as well use this. I believe, Albert, you were mentioning off air that there was a senator in the U.S. who looks like he is using this. And so different people are using it, not just kids, right?
Right, and there is one instance where I did download and use this app. So I believe it was during the Oscars. And it was really cool because the movie stars, they were using Snapchat to give you a behind the scenes. And, reporters would usually kill for such behind the scenes, but they were doing it themselves. Celebrities were showing them hanging out with their friends. And it was really cool, really intimate, and really friendly. All
right, and so all kinds of people are using it and different ages and so forth. Well, we hear next from a research analyst, and what do we learn here?
That Snapchat is for younger people what texting was for, I guess, us 10 years ago.
Does it make you feel old, everyone? Does it make you feel old?
Don't include me in this.
Okay, so that kind of puts things in perspective here, and this is a research analyst who is telling us their thoughts. It's their way to communicate, okay? It's kind of, what they prefer to use in order to communicate with each other. Well, we have a little more to learn concerning this subject, so let's have our last reading for today.
An IPO represents a major financial and symbolic milestone for a young company, bringing with it a large amount of cash to expand, a bolstered reputation in the business community, and greater responsibility to disclose financial results. For all the early success, the company faces risks and competition to live up to the hype, it said in the filing. Financial analysts say the concern among investors is that Twitter may end up a better comparison for Snap. Twitter, which went public at levels of sales and losses similar to where Snap is today, has struggled to navigate in Facebook's wake. 3 years after Twitter's stock market debut, the company's shares trade well under their initial price.
Well, we've been talking about this IPO, initial public offering. What does it represent, Albert?
Well, it represents a major financial and symbolic milestone for a young company. How well it does on its IPO is there's a correlation with how well it would do in the future and how strong it is as a company, how well received the public thinks it's going to do or be.
Okay, and so this is good news, right? If you file for this and everything goes okay, you reach this milestone. It's a symbolic milestone, and sometimes we talk about milestones in our own lives and so forth. It's something that you want to reflect on, right? What is, I guess, a more technical definition of milestone?
Well, it can be seen as an achievement. They've reached this level, all right? So it's very symbolic for them for different reasons.
Okay.
Yeah, and this word comes from how there used to be markers on the road when you're traveling great distances and traveling in the countryside or whatnot. It'd be like, hey, you're this close to Rome or somewhere else.
Like a mile marker, right? Is what we would call it today. All right, and so it is a young company, and we also see that this IPO brings with it a large amount of cash to expand. And so that's terrific news, right? For the company, you get more money, right? And so
and for any investors.
Yes, and a bolstered reputation in the business community. So all of this is kind of a trickling effect, right? A domino effect in a good way. And if something is bolstered, it's kind of built up, right, Linda?
Mm-hmm. It's increased, or in this case, they have an improved, better reputation.
Okay, in the business community, and a greater responsibility to disclose financial results.
Right. So when you're disclosing something, you're like revealing and sharing information. And so this way, everyone can know more about like the health and status of the company, because now they're a publicly traded company, and this way people can understand like, Snapchat is actually doing as well as it says it is.
All right. Well, for all the early success, the company faces risks and competition to live up to the hype. Of course, you're reading all this and you're thinking, wow, Snapchat is great. It's doing really well. There's a lot of hype involved. And it's hard to live up to hype. What is hype, first of all?
Expectation, high expectation.
Okay, and it's hard to live up to high expectations every day. It's hard to meet those expectations, right, in our own lives as a company. And so, people may be disappointed eventually, all right? So they've had a lot of success, but there are some risks involved, and there's some high expectations that they're needing to live up to. And so they talked about this in the filing, and so that's something to think about as Snapchat goes forward. What about the financial analysts? What is their concern?
Well, their concern is, we've seen this happen before with a company called Twitter. They filed for IPO and they did really well. But in recent years, they've been kind of faltering a little bit to live up to the hype and, in fact, grow. They've actually been losing a lot of users. So now they're comparing Twitter to like Snap. It's like, it's possible that there will be a decrease in users.
All right, so they are making this comparison between Snap and Twitter. Some of the analysts think that Snap may be going down or may eventually go down the same road as Twitter. And we get a little information here about Twitter and when they went public and so forth.
Right. When Twitter went public, or after it went public, it experienced losses. And so they're hoping that doesn't happen to Snap, but that's what concerns financial analysts.
All right. And we also throw Facebook here in the mix because it talks about, Twitter went public at levels of sales and losses similar to where Snap is today. So that's where they're making that comparison. And Twitter has struggled to navigate in Facebook's wake. And so we've got a couple of different things we're talking about here. But when we talk about in the wake of something, we mean, if something happens in the wake of something else, it happens after and often because of it. Because, Facebook came along, so Twitter suffered, basically. Okay? So 3 years after Twitter's stock market debut, the company's shares trade well under their initial price. And so basically Twitter struggled. It's still fairly popular. We hear a lot about Twitter. especially in the past year or so. If you're watching U.S. politics, you hear a lot about Twitter. So anyway, this is a company that's still, I guess, doing okay, but it has suffered in some ways. And so some analysts think, well, maybe Snapchat is going down the same road.
Right. I mean, if you guys out there happen to use Instagram or Facebook, you'll notice there are these new features that are being incorporated. It's actually copying what Snapchat has been doing. So all these new like stickers and like different kinds of like interactions that you can do on your app, it's because of Snapchat. And it seems like people are worried that, what Snapchat has going for it is actually something that can be replicated with other platforms.
Okay. All right. Well, listeners, we've learned a lot over the past 3 days. We have learned today about Snapchat and how it's doing quite well, but, we don't know what will happen in the future. Will it follow, in the ways of Twitter, or will it continue to be very successful? We will have to wait and see. Well, we thank you so much for joining us the past 3 days, and we hope that you've learned a lot. Again, I encourage you to go out and practice using some of the words here on our list, our vocabulary focus list, and we hope that you tune into our topic talks. What can they find if they go onto our website, Albert, to look at our Topic Talks videos?
Right. You can go to our website or scan the QR code. Brandon has mentioned this in the past before, but you will find studio classroom teachers reviewing and acting these articles, reviewing the VF words, the ST words, and just helping you memorize the topic and words.
It's another way for you to practice using these words, and also hope it will help you to review these articles. So we invite you to go onto our website or simply scan the QR code. Well, thank you for joining us today for the end of our Newsworthy Clips article, and we hope you will join us again. Until next time, this is Brandon,
Linda,
and Albert
saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.